You ever had your heart broken by an 8-year-old? It's a unique kind of ache, let me tell you. Let me start from the beginning. I'm a 24-year-old guy who spends his free time tinkering with old cars. My dad and I started this hobby when I was a kid, and it's something we've kept alive together. Currently, I'm knee-deep in restoring a 1965 Mustang, a project that's been dragging on for about 2 years now. It's a beautiful car, one my dad's had for years, and now that I'm on my own, it's become my special project. Most evenings, you'll find me in my garage, door open to the neighborhood. People often stop by to chat, especially the older folks who love seeing a young guy like me getting his hands dirty on a classic. I enjoy these conversations. They break up the monotony and give me a sense of community. About a year ago, my neighbor asked if I could keep an eye on her daughter, Rachel, while she worked a part-time job in the evenings. Rachel's parents were going through a rough divorce. Her dad worked the night shift, and her mom's hours just didn't line up well. I agreed, though I warned them that I'd be busy with my car most of the time. They were fine with that, so Rachel started spending her evenings in my garage. At first, she was a quiet, bookish kid. She'd sit on a stool with a book or watch the small TV I'd set up in the corner. I tried to be friendly, throwing out a bit of dad humor now and then, which mostly fell flat, but it didn't bother her. Over time, Rachel started opening up. She'd ask questions about what I was doing, why this car needed so much work when I had a perfectly good one already. This car is a classic, I told her. It's going to be a beauty when I'm done with it. Besides, it's something I've been doing with my dad since I was younger than you. Her eyes would light up with curiosity. Whenever I see my dad, he's always sleeping, she said once, her voice barely above a whisper. Well, he's working hard to provide for you, I replied, trying to be encouraging. She grew more cheerful as weeks turned into months. Rachel would watch me intently, asking about each tool, what it was for, and how it worked. It was fun teaching her. She soaked up everything like a sponge. There was something deeply satisfying about sharing what I knew with her, watching her learn and grow. One memorable day, my dad brought over his '66 GT convertible, and I took Rachel for a ride. Her face lit up with pure joy. Is this what yours is going to be like? She asked. Should be, I said. But mine's a coupe, so it won't be quite as nice. No, she insisted. Yours will be much better because we've been doing it. I had to swallow hard to keep from tearing up. You're right, Rachel. It will be. Rachel had a tough home life. Her parents were always at each other's throats, yelling and arguing. It broke my heart to see such a bright, smart kid caught in the middle of all that chaos. Her mom, as I began to notice, often left the house dressed up, sometimes late at night. It wasn't long before Rachel started telling me things that made my heart ache. Mommy woke me up late at night. She was acting funny. Or, she came home with someone that wasn't Daddy. I didn't know what to do except to keep being a safe harbor for her. Rachel started hugging me more often, squeezing me tight like she was afraid to let go, and it got to me every single time. She'd mimic my mannerisms, use phrases she'd picked up from me, and it warmed my heart. When I'd ask her for a tool, she'd hand me the right one without hesitation. We had some of the best times together, just working on the car. One day, she nicked herself on the radiator support. I picked her up and bandaged her tiny cut. Most girls your age would cry if they got that little cut, I said. Now my hands are going to get all beat up like yours, she replied brightly. I laughed, holding back tears. You're the best little girl in the world, you know that. Her mom came over a few weeks ago and told me they were definitely getting a divorce. She asked if I could keep watching Rachel during the week. I said yes without hesitation. How could I not? Rachel had become such a big part of my life. Yesterday, Rachel was unusually quiet. Turns out her parents decided to move to another city. She was devastated. Does this mean I won't be able to come over anymore? She asked, tears streaming down her face. I choked up. I don't know, Rachel. I hope you can. I love you. You know that? You're the smartest, cutest, best little girl in the world. And I love you. She hugged me tighter, crying even harder. I love you too, she whispered. She even asked if she could stay with me, but I had to tell her I didn't think it was possible. She left yesterday, and I just sat there with a bottle of Jack, tears streaming down my face. How could life be so unfair to such a sweet, innocent kid? I wanted nothing more than to take her pain away, to make sure she had a happy childhood. But there I was, powerless to change her situation. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't concentrate at work, couldn't focus on the Mustang. Every time I picked up a tool, I'd remember Rachel's small hands passing it to me, her eager questions, her bright smile. It was unbearable. One evening, About a week after Rachel left, I was in the garage, staring blankly at the Mustang's engine, when I heard a small voice behind me. "Hey!" I turned around, and there she was, Rachel, standing in the doorway with a big grin on her face. "Rachel!" I exclaimed, rushing over to hug her. "What are you doing here?" She handed me a note. "Mom said I could give this to you." I unfolded the paper and read it. Her mom had decided to move back after realizing how important this place was for Rachel. She asked if I'd be okay with Rachel spending some weekends with me to keep working on the car. I couldn't believe it. Tears of relief and joy streamed down my face as I hugged Rachel tighter. "Looks like we've got a car to finish, partner," I said. Rachel beamed up at me. "I knew you'd say that." And just like that, the little girl next door who had stolen my heart was back, ready to pick up right where we left off. Life had thrown us both a curveball, but we were back in the game, stronger and closer than ever. Weeks passed, and our work on the Mustang continued. Rachel became more skilled, and her questions grew more insightful. She wasn't just a helper. She was becoming a little mechanic in her own right. One Saturday, as we were working on the engine, she looked up at me and said, "Do you think I could fix cars like you when I grow up?" "You can do anything you set your mind to, Rachel," I replied, feeling a swell of pride. "You're already better at this than I was at your age." She smiled, but then her expression turned serious. "I heard Mom talking on the phone. She was talking about moving again, maybe even out of state." My heart sank. Just when things were looking up, there was this new threat of separation. "What did she say exactly?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "She said something about a new job and a fresh start," Rachel said, her eyes welling up. "I don't want to go. I want to stay here with you." I hugged her tightly, not knowing what to say. The thought of losing her again was unbearable. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind raced with thoughts of how I could possibly keep Rachel in my life. Then, an idea struck me. The next morning, I called Rachel's mom and asked if we could talk. We met at a local coffee shop, and I laid out my proposal. I told her how much Rachel meant to me, how well she was doing, and how much she loved working on the Mustang. I suggested that Rachel could stay with me during the weekdays, and her mom could have her on weekends. To my surprise, Rachel's mom listened. She admitted that Rachel seemed happier and more settled with me around. We talked for hours, and by the end of it, she agreed to my plan on a trial basis. When I told Rachel, she was overjoyed. "Really? I get to stay with you?" she exclaimed, her face lighting up. "Really?" I said, grinning. "We're a team, remember?" Life settled into a new routine. Rachel stayed with me during the week, and we worked on the Mustang every evening. Her mom would pick her up on weekends, but Rachel always returned with stories of how much she missed the garage and our projects. As we got closer to finishing the Mustang, something magical happened. My dad decided to give Rachel a project of her own, an old beat-up go-kart that had been sitting in his garage for years. "Think you can handle this one?" he asked her with a wink. "Definitely," Rachel exclaimed. "I'm going to make it even better than the Mustang." And with that, we embarked on a new adventure, our bond stronger than ever, ready to face whatever came our way.